to the entertaining Talkin' Sports.
What is going on, football fans? Back at it with another New York Giants video. I was in the process of filming my draft video, which I should have up later today, but there's been a lot of news that has come out. As a matter of fact, I had to redo this video because more news came out with the New York Giants that they've made a minor signing, bringing on Breeland Speaks. I'll talk briefly about him. He doesn't have much of an NFL draft profile. He's out of Ole Miss. I'll talk about him in this video. He stands at 6'3", 285. He's a defensive end, formerly from the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs actually selected him in the second round of the 2018 draft, in which they traded up, and they took him 46th overall. Has not played since 18. I believe he's been on the practice squad there, if I'm not mistaken. Hasn't gotten much of an opportunity in the NFL, but maybe is a guy that the New York Giants feel like they could get the most out of. We'll have to wait and see how it all plays out, but I'll jump a little bit more into him from some information I was able to gather. I also wanted to touch on the updated cap situation for the New York Giants, and I try to stay as educated on this as I possibly can and try to give you guys updates whenever I get it. I'm always interested in the cap because I'm always interested in finding ways that the New York Giants can improve their football team, and the Giants will have more on their cap than initially anticipated. Of course, I also read today, I think it was from Zach Rosenblatt on Twitter, that some guys may be getting more money added to their salary. It was about $2 or $3 million in total, so maybe the New York Giants can backload that. But in the end, it looks like the New York Giants will have more money. I'll get into just how much exactly they will have and the reasoning for that when I pull up some of the quotes. I also wanted to touch on Dwayne Haskins signing on with the Pittsburgh Steelers, giving my overall opinions on that. We're going to touch on that for sure, and we're going to start with the new head coach for the Philadelphia Eagles, Nick Sirianni. I'm going to go over his resume in this video. You always want to keep up with your rivals and see what they're doing over there. Sirianni actually was with the Indianapolis Colts, and the interesting tie there is with Frank Reich. Of course, Frank Reich became the head coach with the Colts in 2018, coming over from the Philadelphia Eagles, in which he was the, I think he was the offensive coordinator for the Eagles after they won the Super Bowl in 2017. Got the job after McDaniels turned it down. Ironically enough, Sirianni and McDaniels were both the finalists for the Eagles job. But of course, the ties to Frank Reich might have been, in the end, why the Eagles chose to go with Sirianni. You saw that offense really fall off after the fact. Sirianni's been the offensive coordinator for the Colts the last 3 years, in which he's done a pretty good job. They've ranked top 10 in the league 2 out of the last 3 years, and it's an interesting hire. It's an out-of-the-box hire. He's 39 years old. We'll have to wait and see how it all plays out, but I would imagine that he probably impressed during the interviews. I'll go over his entire resume when I start to pull up the notes. As far as Haskins goes, I was a little bit surprised that Washington moved on as quickly as they did, just 4 starts in, but it appeared to be the right decision, especially after you saw some of the off-the-field stuff with the strip club and everything else that Haskins went through. And at that point, I had no problem whatsoever with Washington moving on from their quarterback. And we'll have to wait and see what Washington decides to do at the quarterback position as far as the draft goes. Haskins now has signed on with the Pittsburgh Steelers to, I assume, back up Ben Roethlisberger. I still think Ben will be back this year. I think he'll be the starter. Haskins will be the backup. It is a 1-year contract, but there is not a better spot for him to land. Kind of like Winston last year, landing with the Saints, learning under Breeze, and then potentially stepping in to be a successor. We'll have to see what they decide to do there, or have the freedom to sign on somewhere else. With Haskins, you're now going through a beautiful situation. You've got a great head coach, a great mentor in Mike Tomlin. You're learning under a great quarterback in Ben Roethlisberger, and there is no better team to get the most out of their players than the Pittsburgh Steelers. So if Haskins is ever going to reach his potential, it will be in Pittsburgh. He'll have to put forth a lot more work than he did, at least that's the way it seemed, with Washington if he wants to reach his potential. But he certainly has some potential, and we'll see if Pittsburgh can get it out of him. But he will no longer be playing in the NFC East. I'll pull up the tweet that he had to show regarding his signing with the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think it's an interesting signing, and we'll see how he does. Obviously, he has some connection to the Giants, being that a lot of Giants fans wanted him in the draft. But we're going to start with the one note I was able to pull up on the prospect that the New York Giants just brought in regarding the former second-round pick. The scout continued by saying he could be a really good player in the right setting under the right coach. On rundowns, he's a base left end. That's the tone-setting stout guy that you want. On third downs, put him over on the guard and let him go. He's a good power leverage rusher. He doesn't have the body twitch for backward movement. Another scout was equally bullish on Speaks and said he has big-time flashes, burst, power, plays hard, disrupts a lot. He's a versatile guy who can fit different fronts. What does that sound like for the New York Giants? And I'm not telling you this guy's going to turn out to be anything. He wasn't doing much with the Kansas City Chiefs, but maybe the New York Giants view this guy as a versatile guy, a guy that fits their scheme, that could be at least a depth piece for this roster. Of course, Austin Johnson probably will be moving on. It's possible we end up losing Leonard Williams. Does this point or indicate that the Giants will be moving on from Leonard Williams? I don't think so. This is a guy that has not played in the league since 2018, but he is certainly somebody that may be able to fill the vacancy for a guy like Austin Johnson if he does, in fact, move on. Despite the optimism from these scouts, Speaks is projected to be a late day 2 or early day 3 selection. The Chiefs actually traded up to 46 in the mid-second round to obtain him in the 2018 draft, and this was the tweet by NFL Update. The Giants have signed former Chiefs 2018 second-round defensive lineman Breeland Speaks to a reserve future contract. So an interesting signing by the New York Giants, and perhaps a guy with some upside. As far as the resume for Sirianni, here it is. I'm going to skip over the Mount Union. Started with the Kansas City Chiefs as an offensive quality control coach. Later became a wide receivers coach before signing on with the San Diego Chargers, getting that same designation in 2013 as the quality control coach. Then becoming a quarterback coach, quickly becoming a wide receivers coach. Then becoming the offensive coordinator for the Indianapolis Colts from 2018 to 2020, where he did have some success there with Indianapolis before now getting the head coaching job with the Philadelphia Eagles. I would much prefer this to Josh McDaniels if I was the Eagles. You knew you weren't going to be getting the cream of the crop. And the one thing I'll say to Eagles fans, if you're being unbiased, you have to recognize this is not an ideal situation, and you're going to have to be patient with your coach, much like the Giants were with Joe Judge. You guys are in cap hell. You have a lot of aged veterans. I think the Eagles are going to try, or at least should try, to start to turn over this roster, but we'll see what he brings to the table. Obviously, the ties to Reich are interesting. This is what Dwayne Haskins tweeted out when signing on with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Hashtag here we go. 3 in the Bible stands for restoration and eternal life. Let's work. There's Dwayne Haskins with the mask on in the Pittsburgh facilities, and he will be a Pittsburgh Steeler and apparently wearing number 3. This is the cap space news that I wanted to go over with you guys briefly. The Giants will have an additional $4.8 million in surplus on their cap this year. It's projected to be $175, and that's what they talk about in this article. I've read rumors that it may be substantially higher, as high as potentially $195. So whatever it will be, the Giants will have $4.8 million more in salary cap due to the rollover, and that should help pay for draft expenses. The Giants will have an additional $4.8 million in salary cap space this year as a result of the surplus from 2020. The space gets rolled over to this year's cap, giving the Giants a cap ceiling of $179.8 million for the 2021 season. So it gives us a little more wiggle room, and it's not just them, it's every team. The Jets, for example, I think had $22 million in rollover, and the Giants are going to need every penny they possibly can get. So I wanted to point that out. I also wanted to pull up the quote that Giants Wire also showed about what John Mara had to say about the financial situation for the New York Giants. We'll be okay. We're not ready to put a padlock on the door just yet, Mara said. I think we'll survive just fine. It's been a tough year from that point of view, but listen, there are people all over the country that are suffering. I'm not out here complaining or anything. We'll be fine as an organization going forward. So there's Mara expressing confidence in the New York Giants financials, the cap situation, and everything else. So I just want to point that out with the extra $5 million. I do think Speaks is an interesting prospect, and maybe he's a guy that they feel like fits the scheme. He certainly sounds like it. Maybe the former second-round pick has some success like Austin Johnson did as a depth guy. Do I expect him to be a starter? No, absolutely not. But maybe it indicates that maybe the Giants are trying to build up some depth there, knowing that they will probably lose either Leonard Williams or Dalvin Tomlinson on that defensive line. We'll have to wait and see how the whole offseason plays out, but the Giants signed somebody to a future contract. The Eagles get a new head coach in Nick Sirianni, who I think we're all hoping struggles mightily. We'll have to wait and see how that plays out. And Dwayne Haskins now has a new home with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I wish him nothing but the best. Now that he's out of the division, I think it's a good landing spot. He's going to have to mature. He's going to have to learn, how to become a quarterback in the NFL. But there's not many better spots to go than to learn under a guy like Ben Roethlisberger, if indeed he is back, and to have a head coach like Mike Tomlin and that great organization with the Pittsburgh Steelers. But as always, guys, if you like what you watch, please subscribe. Drop a comment. Maybe give me a little thumbs up. Cheers.